Well, hello, everybody. My name is Scott Kelly. I am the founder and CEO of Black Dog Venture Partners, and I'm really excited for this webinar today with a company we've been working with for a while now. They successfully have been growing rapidly, and they have a phenomenal product, which I think is going to be useful for anybody who has debt, thought about debt, manages debt, has employees with debt, whatever the case is. I'm glad to bring in Bret from Apriority, and I'm going to let him run the show for about 20 minutes or so. We'll have some Q&As at the end. So with that, welcome, Bret, and welcome to the webinar today.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for hosting. This is great to be here. This is a very passionate topic. We wouldn't be doing this business if it wasn't a passion of ours. So hopefully some of that comes through, and excited to talk about it with everybody. So let's get going. All right, you got me here. You see it? Beautiful. Okay. So once again, hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. I know everybody's got crazy busy schedules these days, and the fact that you slotted this into yours, it means a lot. So I take it personally. As a minimum, it's my duty to give you something interesting to chew on. So here's the thing. Personal debt touches nearly every American household, right? It's about time we stop sweeping it under the rug and we take charge of it. So I'm Bret Rietow, as Scott said, co-founder COO of Apriority. And let's go. So now before we get into it, let's set the agenda for the meeting. First, we'll explore the debt dilemma currently facing hundreds of millions of Americans. Then we're going to look into the ripple effects of how that debt manifests into societal problems. Dive into the current offerings, how they're missing the mark. We'll set the tone for what the future of debt looks like, turn that vision into action, and then we'll close and open the floor for questions and discuss the future. So debt's woven into American life, right? For most households, it's not one loan, it's a stack of loans. You might have a mortgage, a student loan, auto loan, one or two credit cards, maybe a personal loan. Each may be manageable on their own, but together they create a major stressor that runs the show in people's lives. Right? I was just talking to someone a couple of weeks ago that described carrying debt as if you're running up a down escalator, right? The harder you work to climb, the faster it moves down and you can never get ahead. And here's why. As of this year, total household debt in America has surpassed $18 trillion. It's the highest in history. And it's not going down anytime soon, given inflation and the interest rates in the current environment. And just recently, financial concerns have surpassed work situation, health and family issues as the top stressor of employees. So think about that. This is kind of crazy to me, right? Everyone's always had that one person that they don't like at work, right? Could be your boss, someone you're working on a project with. But even that is not as important as financial concerns in the eyes of today's workforce. And it's probably because nearly 2/3 of people are living paycheck to paycheck. And this isn't just isolated to low earners. I just read a stat that said a full 1/3 of employees making over $200,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck today. So debt remains one of those topics, right? Most everybody feels it, but few discuss it openly. Even the word debt has a bad connotation to it, right? But yet it quietly shapes choices like what neighborhoods we live in, what jobs we accept, if we are going to start a family or not, how we sleep at night. And so my goal today is to normalize smart borrowing. And at the risk of sounding like a jerk, I fundamentally disagree with this guy right here, Dave Ramsey, because he takes the approach that all debt is bad. You shouldn't take out loans, eat rice and beans, right? It's just simply not realistic for 99% of people. Now, if you heed that advice, look, you're never going to buy your first home and build the equity that comes with it, right? Never going to go to school with student loans and get a degree that could triple your income. You're never going to buy a reliable car to get to your job. Instead, you're going to rely on that junker that costs more to maintain than it's worth. Never going to take a trip that you deserve that's going to help improve your mental health, right? So I'm not suggesting that everybody get every loan that they can, but borrow to enable life. The only caveat is to manage it properly and do your best to take on only smart debt. And it's that last piece right there. Take on smart debt. That's incredibly hard to do, right? Because borrowers today are operating in a misaligned system. The lending industry goal is fundamentally opposed to theirs. So what does that mean, right? Everybody who's part of the lending industry all share the same goal. They're going to extract every last dollar possible from borrowers. And spoiler, they're really, really good at it. On the receiving end are the borrowers, people just trying to make ends meet, whether high inflation, high interest rates. Remember that 2/3 of people living paycheck to paycheck, all they want to do is survive. And so this creates a fundamental divide in system goals between lenders and borrowers. So how do we solve this problem, right? Let's get scrappy, let's get creative, let's find a solution that aligns everyone's objectives. Otherwise, if we don't, everything will remain status quo. So let's look at the ripple effect. This is how debt impacts real people. No doubt everyone in this room has struggled with getting a loan at some point or missed a credit card payment or had to make a conscious decision to skip a meal or two to save a buck. And look, you're not alone, right? In fact, if you haven't had to experience any of that, you are the exception. You're not the rule. And with debt as prolific as it is today, now there's a wealth of data to quantify its effect on people, right? 77% of people lose sleep over money worries. Financial strain is a primary driver to divorce. Student loan carriers, they're reporting depression at a 42% clip because of their loans. And people in debt are 3.5 times more likely to experience mental health issues. And this is the worst one in my eyes, right? Right now, financial distress in credit cards and auto loans are at levels that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. So this isn't just a problem anymore. Personal debt is a full-blown epidemic. And here's another thing. People don't just leave their debt at home, right? They carry it into their workplace with them. So you might have a top performer checking on a loan balance at 10 a.m. He looks disengaged, but in reality, he's just trying to prevent another fee. They're not unique. A full 78% of employees say that financial stress distracts them at work, and that amounts to 664 billion in lost productivity for the employer. That's presenteeism. That's people physically at work, but mentally elsewhere. And worst of all, for employers, 80% of leaders at companies report that employee financial stress is driving turnover. And the thing is, companies are well aware of it. Employees are leaving to chase a dollar because any raise will give them at least a little bit of breathing room. So companies have to spend their own money to backfill the workers that leave on their own accord. Imagine if that employee was in a better financial position. Maybe they wouldn't have left, right? Because of that, financial stress is the #1 workforce concern this year. So let's look into how debt ripples through communities as well, right? Debt disproportionately affects lower income areas as they're the most susceptible to increased debt costs. Here's case in point. Look at the 30-day credit card delinquency rates. If you're in the bottom 10% income zip codes, it's at 22.8%. Almost a fourth of borrowers can't pay their credit card bills in the lower income zip codes. Compare that to 8% at the top 10% income zip codes. And with the credit card delinquencies comes reduced buying power, all those things, right? They can't spend at local stores. These shops are already on razor thin margins, so more and more go out of business and the area gets further depressed, right? So what we're seeing is that as debt costs rise, the divide in wealth between low and high income areas is also widening. The key takeaway here is that debt is not just personal, it affects everything, homes, workplaces, economies. And so what's missing today? All right, forget about the doom and gloom stats. Let's move on. We are people of action. We solve problems. Before we do that, let's look at what options are currently available. And unfortunately for borrowers, there's really not much. Basically, Americans are on their own to manage debt. So think about this for a second. There are wealth management companies on every corner in every big city that want to take your money and grow it. But why aren't there any companies taking that same level of sophistication and applying it to personal debt? It's 2025. This should already exist. And when you look at it from an employee perspective, savvy and caring companies, they give their workforce a full suite of financial wellness offerings, right? They offer budgeting apps, they track spending, but basic guidance doesn't renegotiate interest rates. And habit trackers remind you, okay, pay your bills on time, they're due on this date, but they don't restructure your student loans. And everybody loves financial literacy. Everybody's hawking financial literacy apps, but information alone rarely moves the needle, right? It tends to be too generic for users to know what to do with. The one thing that employers do well is they offer 401k retirement benefits, right? But with all these offerings, right, why do employers still have a financially stressed workforce? Aren't they doing enough to alleviate those concerns? It's because they're not addressing the elephants in the room. They're not providing a true debt benefit to their employees. So in the lending industry, the incentive structure is another major problem, right? Almost every facet of the financial industry is built to monetize borrowers, not to optimize outcomes for them. So this is the typical workflow to get a new loan or refinance an existing loan as a consumer, right? First step, they have the idea somewhere. Let's go check a rate. They have that spark of inspiration. Next, they go to their favorite search engine, right? They find a lender, and SEO dictates the hierarchy of the results presented. So they click in the first link, right? It could be a lending tree or Credit Karma or NerdWallet. And once the consumer goes there, types in a few small pieces of information about what they want, they're presented with options. They have their marketplace model. And that marketplace is structured, it's ordered in a way that the company itself deems best. So they click a link, they get redirected to a lender, where they get harassed by a loan officer into locking a loan for them that may or may not be the best for them. So finally, after this frustrating process, they get a loan from the wholesale market, but therein lies the problem. You see these dollar bags here? Every step of the way with every one of these middlemen, their only incentive is to show you something flashy and get you to go to the next step, right? That's how they make their money for supporting this process through lead gen and selling personal information. So at the end of the day, these costs add up to excess margins, which inflate the rate that the borrower pays. And when the middlemen start to earn more, when the borrower starts to pay more, that trust is broken from the start. So now let's imagine all these intermediate steps were cut from the process, right? Let's just pair consumers directly with wholesale loans. And with none of this middleman bloat, margins for loans are reduced because there are none of these costs and the borrowers get fundamentally lower rates. So let's change it. Let's throw a huge wrench in the gears and disrupt this lending machine. Welcome to the future of debt. It involves a fundamental shift in the financial system. We're going to flip the script and we're going to view debt with a borrower first lens. This means do things that are right by the borrower. Be a fiduciary, be a steward for smarter debt. It sounds easy, right? Well, how are we going to do that? And it starts with a few founding principles here. First off, we're going to consolidate this incredibly fragmented lending space, have all debts. Doesn't matter whether it's a mortgage, a student loan, an auto loan, personal loan, credit cards, have everything live under one roof, one application, one umbrella, one singular view into all liabilities in one place so that we can analyze it as a portfolio. Next, we're going to build an always-on platform that never stops watching for opportunities. So do you see how this is different from the current regime where borrowers are forced to be on their own accord to dictate if and when to check rates? The fact is that interest rate markets change every day. We see news stories every day. Interest rates are changing. Promotional APRs expire. Credit scores change. New credit products come online every single day. So the platform should continuously evaluate the borrower's entire portfolio and surface opportunities the second they occur. Next, let's offer personalized roadmaps to successful outcomes, right? Two borrowers may have the same balance on a loan, but they might need a completely different strategy. One might be living paycheck to paycheck and need breathing room on monthly payments. Another might be looking to pay the lowest amount of interest possible over the next 5 years, right? A robust system can accommodate both of those scenarios and guide them to the unique successful outcomes. Next up, I just talked about this, cut out the middlemen, cut out all that bloat from lending. And by doing this, borrowers are going to get fundamentally lower rates and better outcomes. And the final step, and this is really big, this keeps us honest. Act as a fiduciary for debt. Only promote options that are truly right for the borrower. This means don't introduce bias, no ulterior motives. Instill trust in a lending machine that has been broken for decades. So this is what the future of debt looks like. Notice it's not a patchwork of one-off fixes. It's a borrower-first system designed from the ground up for real people. Lenders have always had an arsenal of tools to extract every last dollar from borrowers. But now with this platform, borrowers have a tool to fight back. So now we're living in the age of AI. It's AI everything. How can we leverage AI to benefit the borrower? Well, first off, the lending machine is a living organism, thousands of products, millions of options, constantly shifting rates. From this, we get an absolutely massive data set from which to use. And every borrower has their own personal objectives, right? What works for one person may be wrong for another. And this is where AI changes everything. It can absorb all of that complexity in real time and tune it to each person's objectives, turning all of this chaos into clarity. And the result is simple. Users get unbiased roadmaps toward better financial outcomes. The system does all the legwork, the borrower gets all the results. At the end of the day, you shouldn't need to have a PhD in finance to make the smartest debt decision of your life. So now that we've created the platform, let's look at how this looks in real life. Here's 3 quick stories that show the pattern. First of all, Jordan, 28-year-old nurse, he financed his car when his credit score was lower, right? But he made every payment on time, his credit score improved, and yet, guess what? His lender didn't call him back to celebrate that with a better offer. But our system did. With that higher credit score, he could save money on interest rates. So our system surfaced an auto refinance, kept the same term length, and saved him $200 a month. And Samir, an engineer, just bought a house. He rushed into a mortgage, paid 6.75% interest rate just to get to the closing table on time. And he was forced to escrow his money out of sight, out of mind, right? That's until he got on our platform. And we started analyzing his loans for him. And by cutting out the middlemen and restructuring his existing debt, we found a 6% option, saved him $124,000 in interest. And Jenny, a 25-year-old HR associate, ran up credit card balances when she got sick, right? So she's paying 28% interest rate on these credit card balances. Even the minimum payments on them weren't enough to keep up with the interest that was accruing. So our system found her 2 options. She could either consolidate into a lower rate personal loan, pay off her credit card debt and transform that to a 5-year personal loan, or move her balance to a 0% promo credit card. She chose the latter, paid it off within a year, and didn't pay any interest on that, saving $4,500. So in every one of these cases, people weren't hunting for opportunity. They just felt stuck, right? This new system, this new way forward for debt uncovered savings behind the scenes, unique to each of their situations. And each of them either got breathing room, less stress, and or confidence that someone finally had their back. So let's see how this debt optimization system's helped companies as well. So it's not a real company. Sorry, it's not Batman's company, Wayne Enterprises, but let's take them as an example here. It's a tech company, 750 employees, and par for the course with tech companies, 15% left last year. 113 of the 750's employees voluntarily left. And unfortunately, they chose to set up shop in a high cost area. So it was financial stress that was the major driver for this exodus. People weren't leaving because they hated their job. They left because they could make more money with a competitor. This drained nearly $4 million from Wayne Enterprises' bottom line through replacement costs and lost productivity. So now we're going to get in our DeLorean, go back in time, back to the beginning of the year, and imagine a situation where Wayne had included a debt optimization benefit alongside their 401k. So now their entire workforce is using this. Employee stress levels drop by nearly 30%. This means fewer departures, more focus, stronger engagement. And as a result, Wayne saved almost $1 million, over $1 million to their bottom line. And given our program costs $81,000 a year, they got a 13x ROI. So this is the power of aligning financial wellness with debt optimization. It doesn't just change employees' lives, it changed the economics of the workplace as well. All right, I've been talking a lot. I appreciate the attention. We've covered a lot. I've been talking at kind of 20 minutes now. We started with the debt dilemma, why personal debt's the #1 financial stressor in America. We talked about the ripple effects, how that stress from the debt dilemma degrades homes, workplaces, communities. We looked at what's missing, and frankly, there's not a lot of good options for borrowers today. Got to see the future of debt and some use cases of turning that vision into action. So if you take one thing away from this, just let it be this. Debt becomes crushing when it's unmanaged. And that's why debt optimization is the next frontier in financial wellness. This isn't a patchwork fix. It's one platform. It's all debts. It's always working. And now is the time for this solution more than ever. So I appreciate it. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Love to field some questions. And here's my contact information. If you want to reach out and have a one-on-one, I'm always open and available to keep the conversation going. So thank you.
Thanks, Brett. So if you have a question, you can either post it in chat or you can use the raise hand function, and I can call on you to ask your question. So Brett, just to give everyone a clear background of who this opportunity is for. So, obviously you spoke a little bit about the problem and the opportunity. Maybe specifically, how can an individual take advantage of a priority? How can companies? offer this to their employees? How can benefits people offer this? Maybe kind of walk through the opportunities in each of those areas.
Yeah. So the good thing for this idea is that debt is not isolated to one facet of life, right? Individuals find success on our platforms. We're introducing a direct consumer model in 1 week's time. So individuals can sign up and pay for the service on their own accord. We really like the employee benefit model. And I'll tell you why. It's because when somebody else is paying the bill for you to get on here and get debt relief, it becomes a no-brainer, right? It becomes akin to a 401k. And we're positioning ourselves as the flip side of a 401k. They can handle building assets for retirement. We're going to handle saving you money on your debt in the meantime. So we love the employer benefit model because we do see this as growing just how 401ks did in the 1980s, right? Now every company offers it. We feel that this is a solution that every company should offer their employees. There's a few other areas that we're targeting in the realtor networks because obviously mortgages are the deal breaker for a lot of these instances, getting people into their first home. So there's a lot of value there as well. But all in all, we just want to help people. We want to build a company that rights a lot of the wrongs that we've seen pervasive in the lending industry over the last few decades.
Great. Anyone have any questions they can answer? If if anyone is an employer, maybe raise your hand, or you offer benefits, or you're in the real estate or other industries. We'd love to get your feedback on this. Daniel had a question. Is it for new debt
Sure.
as well, or more restructuring of older existing debt?
Yeah, great question, Dan. So right now we have functionality to refinance any existing loan that you have. So this includes mortgage, I'll just reiterate, excuse me, mortgage, auto, student, personal loans, and we have credit card functionality. On the new loan side, we support new mortgages and new personal loans. We're working with partners to include new student loans and new auto loans as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that question, Dan. If anyone else has a question, you can post it in chat. So what about a small business owner? So a lot of times they're using, personal credit cards and other loans for that. What's the application there?
Yeah, so we're going to reach the masses. We're trying to reach the everyday consumer with this product and get them on the platform. Small business owners is on the roadmap, but we don't support it in a business format quite yet. Now,
Okay.
if the small business owner is small enough that they're using their personal finances to keep the ship afloat and grow, then we can handle them in that context. But we prefer to sign a deal with the corporate side to roll this out as an employee benefit rather than to support the corporate functions.
And maybe you could delve in a little bit more how this is a good employee benefit. What's a typical employer, profile that would offer this,
Mhm.
and yeah, how would they roll this out to their employees?
Absolutely, great question. So right now, when an employee signs up with us, they fill out the paperwork, we get into contract. There is an onboarding process where we automatically connect with the payroll, and then from there on out, the employer themselves, they're hands off. We handle all communication, all outreach to employees. We encourage everybody through using statistics, which I'll describe in a second to get everybody that we can on the platform because at the end of the day, you never know if you can save money. And so the more bodies and the more lives that on board, and they have to do it on their own. We've noticed that a lot of employers don't really want to delve into their employees' financial lives. They don't want to know that, right? And so they want to put
Right.
up a firewall. So when they do sign up, we handle all the communication, and every user gets their own unique login. Any information about that user never transmits back to the company. The only things that we do transmit are things like percentage adoption, total number of savings unlocked for their entire workforce, those sorts of things that are relevant to justify the continued spend for this benefit. But users, we're seeing 1 out of 4 users find savings immediately when they sign up, right? 1 out of 4 users, and most of them, first of all, have no idea, and second, aren't looking on their own to find savings. It's like they just got a birthday present. They sign up and it's like, oh, here's $50,000. Do you want it? Yes or no? Right. So 1 out of 4 users sign up. Across all of our users, we're finding that the total lifetime interest cost savings is around $28,000. So the
Well,
system works really well. And now, who does it work best for? We're finding that younger tech-driven companies, this resonates a little bit more with, right? Younger workforce, likely student loan debt, likely making pretty decent salaries. probably don't own a house yet, but are in the market for it and they want to restructure their debt and they want to find creative ways to get into their first house. And they're also really open to online technology solutions, right? They're bucking the trend of going to a brick and mortar. Instead, they're doing these neobanks and these online solutions to financial problems. So we're seeing it resonate a lot with those types of companies.
Thanks for that. We'll take, if there's any more questions, we will take those in chat. Well, let's do this. Any final thoughts that you want to share with the listeners today, Tony? All right, Brett?
Yeah, uh, we're looking to grow any means possible. The system works, like I just said, and we know that this is the future of debt. That's why we put on this webinar. It's the future of debt. We think that in a couple of years, we're going to have a lot of competition nipping at our heels. And since we had this idea from the get-go, formulated this new approach, we want to be at the forefront of this new revolution, of this new bleeding edge of financial frontier for debt. And so we need to grow as fast as possible. And because of that, we offer tons of discounts. We just want to get people on the platform. If there's any motive, if there's any even small bit of interest, reach out to me. Let's figure out how we can deploy it to either your company, you personally, anybody on this call, just send me an email. You get a free access code. You can take it for a test drive on their own. But our sole motivation right now is to grow and grow as fastly as possible, as quickly as possible, because we know, like I said, in 2 years, this is going to become the new standard for debt optimization.
Right. And for those listening in, I'm going to be, if you miss this or have somebody that wants to listen to the webinar, we are going to have a recording for the event. I did post a link. We are partners with Apriority. If you want to get some preferential pricing and treatment, you can use that link or send me an email. And then thank you for all joining, and thank you for being involved and participating, Brett. And as I say in all these things, if there's something you didn't like, tell me. If there's something you love, tell everybody else. And with that, I thank you all for being part of our webinar today.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for hosting.